It's just like a lot of really just over the top, like unbelievable. Hey, 你好, I'm Nick, a director living in Taiwan.
Hey, 大家好，我是 Luke. I'm cinematographer living in Taiwan, Taipei.
Today, we're going to be speaking a little bit more Chinese. If you want to understand the Chinese, you can click the closed caption, CC button on the bottom, and it'll give you subtitles. If you're on a phone, there's 3 dots up at the top by the video. You can click on that. Closed caption option will open up, and you'll have your English subtitles or your Chinese subtitles.
Yeah, it's great, so we can have more audience.
Yeah. So today we're talking about a movie called Island of Greed.
黑金.
And this movie is a Hong Kong movie. So this is our first movie that we're talking about that's made in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
It was filmed in Taiwan.
Yeah.
It's set in Taiwan. It's about Taiwan.
It's a story about Taiwan.
But it's a Hong Kong blockbuster movie that was shot here in the 90s, 1997.
1997.
It stars Andy Lau, who, if you don't know who Andy Lau is, he is maybe the most famous actor in East Asia, I would say.
Yeah, in Chinese cultural circle.
Yeah, and of Chinese-speaking countries, he is the most famous. He's like the Brad Pitt
Brad Pitt.
of
Yeah.
Asia.
Yeah, even more famous than Brad Pitt, I guess.
So this movie is really interesting because it's a good embodiment of like what a Hong Kong movie is, I think. It has all the Hong Kong kind of elements all mixed together.
Yeah, all the technique you will see in Hong Kong movie will all in this movie.
Yeah. So like if you're from the United States and you know like what is like a Hollywood movie, there's like certain things you can identify and you say like, oh, that's a blockbuster Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
This is like a Hong Kong blockbuster movie. Like it has gangs. It's about gangs.
Yeah.
Has sex.
Has
It
fighting.
has fighting, kung fu and stuff. Like a spy kind of element to it. It's got Andy Lau in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a romance between Andy Lau and a reporter that's like very, I would say maybe a little bit like too dramatic.
Definitely this movie contains a lot of entertainment elements. But for me personally, I recommend this movie to everybody is because it's story about the political, about the gangsters, about how people get involved, and also about the government, how government use the gangsters to secure their power. So
Yeah.
this is a kind of reminded me about the, well, I would say the most famous movie, The Godfather, right? Because
Oh, okay.
The Godfather always talking about gangsters.
And how they're connected to the government.
Yeah, but they not really show you how the government manipulate the gangster, right? But in this movie, you can clearly see how the government manipulate the gangsters and use the gangster to fulfill their benefit, and also dump this gangster once you already
When they don't need them anymore.
Yeah,
So it kind of shows, it's a bit about how like the politics is corrupted by the gangs, but the gangs are also corrupted by politics, and shows kind of the deep connection. I think this element of the movie though might be a little difficult for a foreign audience to understand because it is so connected to the politics of Taiwan. Yeah. Everybody kind of knows that back in the 80s, 90s, gangs and the government of Taiwan were really kind of connected.
Yeah.
Hopefully nobody comes after me for saying that.
It's okay, we are totally free country.
Yeah. It's been, well, that's another interesting part of it is that Hong Kong, in the 90s, Hong Kong collaborated a lot with Taiwan, and they made these movies. And this movie is it paints Taiwan in like a really kind of not a great light. Like the movie is kind of making Taiwan seem like a really corrupt place. Lots of gangs, really terrible. But the movie was made here. It was probably some help from the government. They were probably happy to do it because Taiwan has free speech, you know?
You need to have government support to be able to film this kind of movie.
Yeah, exactly. They're filming on the street. They're doing all this stuff. But Taiwan has free speech, right? So they're like going to be like, okay, this movie is critical of us, but we're not going to stop them from doing it.
Right.
Whereas like now, Hong Kong, if you don't know, has been kind of taken over by China. And
Too bad.
Can you imagine a movie like this
would never happen again in Hong
they
Kong.
can't make it. They can't make a movie in Hong Kong where they're set in China, and it's all about how gangs in China, the
No
Chinese
way.
government are connected, and the corruption of the Chinese. It's like it's not possible. You can't make this movie anymore.
Yeah, it's why this movie is such important step for film history， 因为它让我们看到我们以前不好的地方，而且我们也承认了以前我们就是这样子有黑道，然后政府利用黑道，然后黑道反过来被政府抛弃，这些不好的历史。
对，
所以我们能够好好的看我们过去不好的地方，能够改过，那这样才是进步，而不是就是说我们没有啊，我们没有做过这些，我们不承认。
你不会假装就是其实政府都是完全好的，完全
那是骗人的。
对，
就是很多中国的大陆的片，就是像什么《流浪地球》中国政府多棒，拯救世界那种。
That is what is interesting about the movie. Is like the movie technically and stylistically and kind of in a form sense is not really very interesting to me. But the history of if you think about the history of Taiwan and the history of the movie industry in China and Hong Kong, then this movie becomes a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that this movie is made, it's criticizing Taiwan government. A lot of the things in the movie seem like they're they're not. This is not really a true story, right? But it's kind of based on real things that happen.
Yeah. It is.
There's a fight with taxi drivers.
Yes.
And it's like the taxi companies are all owned by gangs.
Yeah.
Which is real. There's a fight in a casino where they have like a casino that's like not really a casino, where you go there and you play the game and then they'll give you a prize, and then you can trade the prize for money. It's like the way that the gangsters get around.
Yeah.
And that's real. That really happens.
Real,
So it's like a lot of these real things made their way into the script, which I think is quite interesting if you know a little bit about Taiwan.
Yeah. So, the other 其他我觉得很有趣的地方是讲到，就是政府怎么跟黑道合作，然后政府利用黑道之后，又反过来把黑道去掉，所以政府是一个非常，我觉得比黑道更坏。其实我很同情那个主角梁家辉，可是虽然说他做 gambling 的 business， 但是他是黑道，虽然说他杀人什么，可是我看到后面我很同情他。我很喜欢这个角色。
你觉得他有一点可怜？
他一定有可怜的地方，可是我觉得他也有他好的地方，就是他其实想要，就是他想要打击政府，利用他们，他其实想要报仇，他觉得政府在利用他，他想要为他的兄弟报仇，他想要他其实也想要正义，可是他太弱了，他弱小了，所以最后还是被处理掉。
Right.
但其实。你说他不好嘛？其实我觉得他没有那么坏。你看那个，他最后不是那个侯部长死掉嘛？我觉得其实我很爽，就是那个侯部长真的是
一直利用他，
对，一直利用黑道，一直把黑道踩在脚底下，然后，可是他其实真的很坏，所以黑道其实这也是电影里面的那一种爽快的地方，就是坏人死掉。
I think the most surprising thing about this movie is there are some crazy things that happen in it.
You mean
okay, small spoilers, I guess, but it doesn't really spoil it because it's kind of surprising. I was shocked. So if you don't want to know this thing that happens, you can skip a couple minutes. But the scene with the dogs.
The dog, Li Donghui?
No, the scene with the dogs.
I think it's animation. Is it?
No, those are real dogs.
Okay.
This is in the 90s. This is before you could do that with animation.
Crazy amount
There's
of dogs.
100 dogs in this movie, just chasing everyone and attacking them. And I was thinking, like, this is crazy. You never see this in a movie anymore because it's just like such a weird thing that wouldn't happen in real life, but it's such like a movie thing.
Yeah,
and it's very entertaining though.
Imagination's part of it's kind of okay.
Like if you think about it in reality, like so this gangster trained
so
100 dogs. When he calls them, they just appear out of nowhere and attack everyone. Like where is he keeping all the dogs?
I I don't know.
Just in case, like, and he didn't know that the cops were gonna be there too, right?
No way.
He has a meeting with these people, and then the cops come, and then he's like, "Dogs, get him!" So it's like he has all these dogs. Just
so
in
many.
case.
It's so.
It's out of control, and like, yeah, he has a rocket launcher on his helicopter.
Yeah.
He has he hangs the part that you said, like, he hangs a guy from a helicopter over the city, flies over the city for like 5 minutes. It's just like a lot of really just over the top, like, unbelievable stuff. But those kinds of things I think are part of Hong Kong cinema, like John Woo, and he came from Hong Kong. You can kind of understand like movies like Face Off in the United States, or what else did he make? I don't remember, but Face Off is the big one, and that movie's real crazy, over the top. You can see kind of that is the Hong Kong style that went to Hollywood.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the kind of movie this is, where it's like built around the movie's built. The plot of the movie isn't super clear sometimes to me. When I was watching it, I couldn't really follow. I'm like, there's so many things going on with the plot, where it's like there's this politician who's getting money from this gangster, and then there's these two gangsters, and this gangster is trying to get elected, and this gangster wants to get elected too, and they're fighting with each other. But then there's a cop, and there's a reporter, and his dad's driving a cab. There's like all these things happening.
So it is too confused, right?
A little confusing for me, but then the Hong Kong movie will kind of ground it in these big action scenes where it's like, you don't really need to know exactly what's going on. You just kind of need to know, like, okay, the cops are trying to catch these guys. That's all you need to know, really. Okay. And then now they fight. If you want, you can follow the story, but you don't need to.
Yes, you don't need to. You can still
get something. But then if you want to follow this complicated kind of what they're trying to say, then you can do that as well. So
this is why I like this movie, because if you follow it, you can really deep down to it, and you can 你可以吸收到很多很多的东西，你可以吸收到政治的东西，你可以吸收到帮派的东西，你可以吸收到那个警察，然后你可以吸收到媒体，怎么政府利用媒体，然后去，其实就是操控人民。我们人民就是怎么样去，我们根本看不清楚后面的事情，它其实告诉你我们。后面的事情。
It even talks about like religion and how the government or like the mobsters will use religion to like wash their money.
Yeah.
And like this kind of stuff. So it's criticizing all these different elements. It's a really interesting kind of time capsule into the way that people, kind of the cultural criticism that was possible in Asian movies in Hong Kong back in the day. I think that now that Taiwan is the democracy of Asia, I think they need to take on this role again, You
mean the role?
我的意思是，之前香港的电影会拍这种的，就是他们会拍，可能是一个 action movie， 可是他们其实真的想要聊这种政治
的东西，
黑道的，就是可能是
对。
可是现在他们没办法，可是台湾
需要，
所以我觉得如果台湾要拍一个 action movie， 他们一定要加进去这种。
更深的东西。
对啊，因为只有台湾可以拍这种的。
对，
在亚洲来说的，或是在那个讲中文的地方来说，只有台湾可以拍比较深的东西。所以其实台湾现在 in the movie industry they have a responsibility, I think.
Yeah, you are right.
To make things that are more meaningful, because it's the only place that's possible.
Yeah.
So even if you're making a silly action movie with like lots of over-the-top violence, you should try to have a message that is important in the movie.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So this is how we combine commercial and also some part of art together.
Yeah.
So we can have enhance the 影响力 to all the.
All right. If you have a video you want us to talk about from Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, anywhere in Asia, please leave a comment. Let us know. We'll talk about it. And like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Share this video with your friends.
Yeah. And watch more Taiwanese and
and
Hong Kongese movies.
Taiwanese movies. See you next time.